Hi, everyone. It is 2 o'clock. I'm Emmy Boyette, Director of Marketing at the NC Chamber, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's our kickoff to the series of our Imposter Syndrome Working Group. We've had a lot of you register, a lot of interest for this group, and in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about how special this group is because the composition of types of people is amazing, and we're going to have a lot of great discussion today. So thank you for joining us. Just to go over briefly the flow of how things will go today, I'll ramble for about 2 minutes and then I'll introduce Stacy Cassio, who is our keynote speaker today. You will be floored by her presentation and the takeaways that she gives you to help begin conquering imposter syndrome. And then after her presentation, we will break out into networking groups of about 10 to 15 people. And Stacy will pose a couple of questions that you can discuss in your networking groups as she closes her keynote today. And then after we discuss those questions in our breakout groups, we'll come back together here. You won't have to do anything. All of that will happen automatically for you. And we'll just have a couple closing comments and take a quick poll to see how things went for you today. So just to talk about briefly how this group got started. The NC Chamber every year hosts an annual women's conference. We call it Women of Force in Business. And we do 2 editions of that event. One is in Raleigh and one is in Charlotte. Of course, for the past year or so, everything has been virtual, but we still do a version for Charlotte and a version for Raleigh. And at our last event, we had a breakout session that was focused on imposter syndrome. It was so well received. And we actually had one of our participants who said, you know what? It'd be really great if we could continue this conversation throughout the year because this is not a one and done issue. You don't go to one event or one session online and all of a sudden, oh great, your imposter syndrome's gone. That's not how it works, unfortunately. So this is something we wanted to develop to help female professionals and all professionals throughout our state throughout the year because we do actually have a few male attendees with us today and we appreciate them joining us. I also wanted to briefly talk about who all is in this group. The composition, as I said earlier, is amazing. So we have people from all regions of North Carolina, but we also have people from 7 different states outside of North Carolina, and we're happy to have them with us today. We also have people from all industries ranging from manufacturing to mining to engineering to healthcare, education, nonprofits, you name it. Everyone's represented here. And we also have a very wide range of titles and responsibilities. So while the majority of us, a small majority, are from entry-level positions, we also have a pretty even split above that between manager, director, senior level, VP, C-suite, and president. So a great composition for our group today and moving forward. And again, I just thank you so much for being with us. Now I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker. Stacy Cassio is the founder and CEO of the Pink Mentor Network, which is Charlotte's first female mentorship community, and she founded it in 2017. Stacy understands the importance of mentorship because her own career and business were built on the opportunities introduced to her by mentors. She's worked in so many different industries, y'all. She's been in insurance investigation, engineering management, manufacturing, and operations. The vast exposure to those industries proved to Stacy the importance of great mentors as a career development tool. And she's also recently created Pop-Up Mentor, a brand new model for mentorship that's being used by organizations across the state to build transparent, scalable, measurable employee resource programs. In 2019, her work was actually nominated for the Athena International Corporate Award for Leadership and Charlotte NO's Opportunity Champion Award. Stacy was also named a Mecklenburg Times 2019 Phenom. So Stacy, I am so honored to have you with us today, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Emmy. I am thrilled to be here today because you probably all feel it. There is an epidemic in this pandemic, and it's known as imposter syndrome. So my plan for us today is to give you some strategies of how to deal with it. Also understand where it's triggered for you, and then hopefully find some accountability in the breakout session of how to use some of these tools and how to put them into play tomorrow. It's something we can immediately use. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Emmy, can you see it?
You're good.
All right, great. All right, so let's start with the beginning here. So just a little bit about me and why this topic is really important to me. So I started with as the head of engineering for a manufacturing company. And in so many of those rooms, I was the only. And I realized that it was triggering this incredible imposter syndrome for me. And I really needed a strong female mentor to remind me that when I am the only, my voice is important. I have to show up authentically in order to represent a whole gender. So understanding that is one thing, but implementing it is a whole nother thing. I didn't have the confidence to do it at that moment. I didn't have the confidence to speak up. So that started Pink Mentor Network. And it was really just my opportunity to ask some really successful, experienced women what their challenges were in their careers. And hopefully someone would take me on as a mentee and help me understand how to find my authentic voice. So if you notice up in the corner there, that is my first Pink Mentor event in the pale pink and the glasses. As I have gone through this and realized that our challenges are shared, I have begun to find my authentic voice. And the pink has gotten quite a bit brighter. I still wear pink today, as you can see, and I'm going to share with you why. And then also you'll notice the theme of Pink Mentor Network, and one of our founding mantras was, I've never met a woman I couldn't learn from. And today people come up to me and say, wow, that's empowering. I love that sentiment. Y'all, it was a mental trick I was playing with myself because I needed to be reminded that if I faced rejection, there was another woman I could learn from. So as I was on this mentor scavenger hunt, when a woman said, I don't have time to help you right now, it was just a note to myself. Someone else will help you. Keep asking, keep going down that journey. So in that, I realized it's this imposter syndrome can be crippling. And the first thing I want to point out to everyone on this call is imposter syndrome. I looked this up because I noticed in communications and in some of the other sessions I've done, imposter is spelled with an ER. In other sessions, it's spelled with an OR. Both are acceptable. Can we trust something that doesn't even know how to spell its own name? It's ridiculous. So just a very funny aha about imposter syndrome is it's kind of an imposter in its own. But I wanted to start with this core of who we are as professionals. So there are two things that are really true to us as professionals. One, we want to be in a safe environment. We want to feel protected. We want to feel like we have security in our work, that we'll receive a paycheck, that will continue to be safe in this environment. But there's this other piece of us that wants to do work that matters. We want our time at work to be impactful. We want to make a difference. Well, what happened in 2020 was no one felt protected. We didn't know what was going to be happening next. There was insecurity all around us. We also were getting pulled from the work that matters to put out fires. Both of these things, this need to protect ourselves and this urgency to put out fires, is exhausting. So if you are exhausted today or feeling burnt out or hit a pandemic wall, you are not alone. You are not alone. You are simply having a hangover from 2020. But one of the things that I want us to understand about imposter syndrome is where in these two core principles of our work does it show up. So I'm going to introduce a tool that I think will really help put into perspective where your triggers for imposter syndrome are. So as you can see here, this is a matrix. And I want to try to look at last week's work, look at last week's calendar. Let's reflect on the tasks, the projects, the meetings, the conversations that you were having in the last week of work. Now think about them in these quadrants. So at the top of the quadrant, you'll see most enjoyable work. Those are the things we love to do, the parts of our job that are fun and we can't wait to start doing them. Then we have these pieces of work which we just have to do because that's part of the job. It's not necessarily the stuff we love. So think about your work in things that you love to do and things that you'd rather not. My mom always taught me you can't use the word hate. So I changed that to, I tempered that down a little bit to rather not. What would you rather not do at your job? Next, we have the natural fits. These are the things that we don't really have to try at. It just comes naturally to us. I think sometimes we overlook these things because we assume that they come naturally to everyone else, but they don't. These are your gifts. Then you have the complete misfits. These are the things that no matter how hard you try, you're always learning more. You're always developing. There's always an opportunity to get better at these types of tasks, these types of activities. So we're going to break this down into the quadrants. So here in this work that we love, and that is a natural fit for us, in those tasks, projects, meetings, conversations that fall into this quadrant, that's your sweet spot. Spend more time there. In the second quadrant, the things that we love to do, but may not come as naturally to us, are our learning curve. So in this quadrant, take a class, find a mentor, read a book, find ways to practice these skills so that eventually you can grow and be better at them and move them to your sweet spot. How do we move them into things that we are naturally good at? Practice. We have to practice the items that we want to invest in this quadrant. Next, you have quadrant number 3. Ugh, I see so many professionals living and working in this quadrant. It is a rut. It is the things, all the things that you are naturally good at, but you don't really love. They just get delegated to you because you're good at it. And they know that the work will get done when they give it to you. So understand what is in the rut. Delegate here. Here you can coach others how to be good at this work. You can delegate it to someone else. So understanding what falls here and that you don't just want to play in this because that's what's going to lead to burnout. And the last one is the misfit. These are things that you're not good at and you have no interest in. Why are you spending more time there? For me, this is golf. My husband loves golf, asks me to play with him every weekend. My answer is always no, because I have set a boundary. I don't like golf. It's a waste of my time. I like spending time with you. So if I can ride around in the golf cart, that's okay. But understanding how to apply boundaries here. So some things that I know fall in this quadrant for me it's a hard no in my mind. No is a complete sentence. If it falls in that quadrant, I don't need to do it. So just understanding that our work, everything we do, falls into these 4 quadrants. So how does this relate to imposter syndrome? When we're working out of quadrant number 2 or quadrant number 4, there is a high probability that imposter syndrome will creep up. And the idea is we're growing. Of course, we don't have all the answers. Of course, we're not perfect. Of course, we're operating with a little bit of, I don't know what I'm doing, because we're learning. When we're in the learning curve, we're stretching beyond our comfort zone. Imposter syndrome creeps up when we are afraid that others will see us as a fraud. When we're growing or learning, it's possible that others will question us. So understanding to give yourself grace in this area is super important. The next time that imposter syndrome creeps up is when the people, the culture, the room, the audience is a complete misfit. When we're operating out of quadrant 4. Yes, we feel like an imposter because we weren't meant to spend time there. So my question for you all as we get ready for the breakout session, the first question is, what is your trigger? When you think about that fear of being found out of fraud, is it in places where you're learning, or is it in places that you don't really belong? What are the rooms, audiences, and environments where imposter syndrome creeps up for you? Just this awareness, understanding why I'm triggered is so powerful. So next, I want to give you some strategies of how to overcome imposter syndrome. What do we do when we're in that learning curve or when we're in the misfit situations? So here's strategy number 1. Strategy number 1 is to plant confidence in your routine. There's a reason I wear pink. It makes me feel confident. It makes me feel like the CEO of the Pink Mentor Network. It makes me feel like I have thousands of women supporting me. Understanding where you're most confident and then giving yourselves, planting that confidence into your routine is so important. The other thing is, if you see me out on the street, you'll notice that I have an empowering t-shirt on usually and high heels. Now, there was a time in my life, I'm almost 6 foot, and there was a time in my life where I never wore high heels because I towered over everybody. Now, I tell you, it is like my armor, and I am going to war in my armor. I am wearing my statement t-shirt because it empowers me, a pink blazer, heels. I'm wearing a ring that my grandma gave me, a ring my dad made me. I have a bracelet on that says strong woman. Whatever you need to plant confidence into yourself. Think about that in Zoom. I mean, you're looking at yourself all day right now. When I look at myself, I see myself in pink. I see myself wearing a necklace that says badass. Those things, that practice, it wears off. Make it part of your routine. The last bullet there is Connie Can. Now, this is a crazy, crazy story. And my husband said, you're not going to share this story with them, are you? But I have to, because it's really, really helped me. So when I started Pink Mentor Network, it was just an idea. It was my own need to find a mentor. I did not know what I was doing. I did not know that I was creating a business that would help others find mentorship. I did not know that I was creating a model of mentorship, which took the relationship burden out of being a mentor and created it an extension of leadership. But what I did know was that the need was there. I knew it every time I spoke to a woman and I heard it in her voice. I knew she had a problem I could solve. So what I started doing when I put on my problem solving cap was calling that person Connie Can. So Stacy Cassio may have some self-doubt, may feel like an imposter, but Connie can. Connie can build this mentorship community, facilitate this mentorship event, can speak to women about imposter syndrome. And the little thing that was my trigger to remember it is you have to check it out. It's these socks that say, "Note to self, I am confident." And the name of the or company, it's a small business in Kansas that sells these personalized socks. And it says, "Note to self, I am confident." And y'all, I have the socks on right now. I would show you, but there's a giant hole because they're well worn. So understanding, visualize yourself at the most confident version of yourself. Then start showing up as her every single day. Then one day you will look in the mirror and you will see her. I can't wait to meet her. Strategy number 2, success reminders. Ooh, sometimes we need to be reminded how wildly capable we are. These are some things that I do to remind myself on those days where I'm crippled by self-doubt and have no idea what I'm going to do next. And honestly, they still come quite often. I have a couple different things, an audio version of myself. So I listen to an interview I did or a recording that I made myself at my most confident. I hear that success in my voice. Photos. As you can see, that picture there represents feedback I have received from members, from leaders, from organizations about my work. I favorite those on my phone and go back and look at them when I need to be reminded of how wildly capable I am. Legacy folders. I keep reminders, and it's on my Google Drive, reminders of the strong women who came before me. And then all I'm doing is picking up their torch and marching on. I'm following in their success. So think about that. How can you listen to yourself once you've had some success? Relook at that. How can you organize your photos so that you have reminders in those moments where you feel like an imposter? You have reminders of how qualified you are. And then legacy. You are not alone in this challenge. Understanding that when we repeat these small wins often, we are flexing new muscles and we're breaking through this imposter syndrome. Strategy number 3. This one I have to thank Emmy for this. I did not think of strategy number 3 until she gave me the opportunity to consider it. So last October, I did an event for the North Carolina Chamber, and I was so intimidated by the panel. These women were phenomenal. I was so intimidated. And I remember thinking the night before, oh, I'm never going to get any sleep the night before because I'm just going to be tossing and turning and worried about, blowing it in this incredible panel around me. I slept so well that night. And I woke up and I processed it. Why did I feel ready for this stage? It was a huge opportunity. Why did I feel ready? And I will tell you, it was because years and years of preparation to get me to this point. Today's challenges prepare you for tomorrow's opportunities. Hard work. I had done the work to get to this point. I earned a seat on that panel. Experience. I had done over 300 events already. I was experienced. I knew I had the content, I had the grit, I had the voice to be heard in that session. Of course, I was going to sleep well. So remember that preparation, hard work, experience are always the antidote to imposter syndrome. Now, when I start to feel that creep up in front of a big meeting or a big opportunity, I think in my head, what if someone does ask me how I got here? You know what? I would be so proud to tell them exactly how hard I worked to get here, exactly how hard how much time and effort and experience and learning it took to get me to this point. I would be thrilled to tell them that was thousands of women who I've had conversations with and the opportunity to learn from that prepared me for this exact moment. So I go ahead. I dare you to ask me what qualified me for this moment. So think about that. You know, you may have felt like an imposter early on in your career, but I guarantee you are more prepared, you have worked harder, and you are more experienced than that moment in your career where you felt like an imposter. So understanding you've grown, you deserve that seat at the table. So breakout question number 2. When you move out into these sessions, I want you to tell the folks in your breakout room which strategy you will start using tomorrow. Are you going to plant confidence into your routine? Are you going to make a list of all your successes and figure out how to remind yourself where that list is? Are you going to practice the antidote, which is hard work, preparation, experience that prepares you for these rooms, audiences, and environments? So question number 1 was, what are your triggers? Question number 2 is, what will you immediately deploy? So the final challenge I have for you today. The cycle must stop here. Now, what I mean by that, the cure to imposter syndrome is to never take it on in the first place. You are not an imposter. You are human. And so is the woman around you. We are human beings doing the best possible that we can in most cases. We are either growing or we are not in the places for us, but we are never an imposter. Do not take it on. I find this so interesting. You know, here we are, amazingly accomplished, diverse, successful women. Do you know one men's group that is having a conversation right now on imposter syndrome? Any. I have never in the agenda of any men's group ever seen a discussion point about imposter syndrome. We can't buy into it. We're learning or we're in the wrong place for us. We're never an imposter. Don't let the women around you buy into this either. So I like that little, I actually have that as a pin. Not going to take it on. Nope, that's not for me. I am not an imposter, and neither are you. So if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, I quickly went through this slide, but the reason this is planted in my presentation is this incredible woman greeted me at the beginning of a in-person event a couple years ago. I was walking into a room filled with executives, and I felt like a total imposter. And here was Victoria Taylor, who knew me pretty well. And all the way from back in the room, in the back of the room, she saw me walking in because remember, I'm 6 foot and in high heels. So of course she's gonna see me. And she said, "That woman is a badass." She screamed it from the back of the room. Now, I know some people don't want to be called a badass, but I kind of loved it. And I think more than that, the idea that a woman who I adore, respect, hold to a very high level, greeted me in a room full of strangers with a hug, a smile, and a welcome. We can do that for each other. When you're going into this breakout room, greet each other with kindness and grace. And when you see a familiar face, remind others around them that this woman is a badass. So just bring that into your work, especially as we're returning to the office. We're going to be greeting each other for the first time in a long time. Greet each other with open arms. So in closing, why this matters. Y'all, I would not be here today. I would be thinking of myself as a total imposter. You would never have known Stacy Cassio. I never would have got the privilege to speak to you today had I not gotten over the idea that I was an imposter. If you notice in this photo, that picture from my earlier days as an engineering manager is on the screen behind me. This represents so much to me because in that picture, I felt like such an imposter in that situation, but I was just in the wrong room. That's me in bright pink holding the mic. That's the room that I was meant to be in. Legacy is the lives we impact, not the lives we create. And I want you to know you have to get over this imposter syndrome stuff because you have a legacy to leave. We need to hear from your unique voice. We need to hear from your unique perspective. You need to find your stage. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to, and one other thing. So last month, I was on this mission for Women's History Month. And I was speaking to organizations in matching their investment if they were investing in the women inside that organization with annual Pink Mentor memberships. I know this group could so desperately needs the support of the women around them. So I'll extend that offer today. Even though it's past Women's History Month, I think we have to lock arms for a lot longer. And if anybody is interested, here's the offer. You can go to Pink Mentor Network and there's an annual subscription there and use the code Women's History and you become part of the Pink Mentor Network and you lock arms with a lot of great women around you. So that's me. This is how to connect with me. I am very grateful for the opportunity to share my story, and I hope that it resonates with someone here today. Emmy?
Thank you so much, Stacy. And to all of our guests today, we'll make sure that you get all these details that you see on the screen in our recap email. We'll talk more about the other materials you'll get in your recap email after we come back from networking. But first off, just wow, Stacy, I know you didn't have the chance to check the chat as you were speaking, but there were some great conversations there. And I can just tell from the chat itself how much your words resonated. I mean, the fact, y'all, we had about 150 people register for today's session. What does that tell you? That tells you that you are not alone in feeling this way. And you shouldn't feel bad for going through imposter syndrome or having those feelings, but we also have work to do as professionals and as people who want to grow to make sure that we have that armor in place. And maybe eventually we get to a place where we don't need the armor anymore because we have learned that we are capable and we know that we have the talent and we deserve to be where we are. And so that's the goal of this series, to make sure that as we continue to grow, we know the strategies and techniques that we need to put in place for ourselves and for other women to make sure that little by little, we build up our armor to the point where we don't need it anymore. So thank you so much, Stacy. In just a moment, we are going to go into our breakout sessions. And as a former teacher, I feel the need to remind everyone, you are under no pressure to participate, but remember why you're here today. Remember what the goal that you have for yourself in place is. We want to kind of reach outside of those comfort zones. So I encourage you to participate in the conversation, to speak up. This is a really safe place to do that. And just to remind you of the questions, and you will have an NC Chamber representative in your breakout room to kind of stoke conversation if needed. But just to remind you of those questions, Stacy's first one that she wanted you to talk about was what's your trigger? It's really important to know what triggers those feelings of imposter syndrome for you. So is it more like a learning curve situation or a complete misfit situation for you, or something different? So talk about those. And then what are some strategies that you think you can start putting in place today to start conquering those feelings of imposter syndrome? Whether it's Stacy's planting confidence strategy, whether it's her reminders of success, so making sure that you have those reminders on a constant basis, or getting to the point where you've practiced enough, you've prepared enough, you have the experience so that you no longer feel like you actually should have imposter syndrome. So those are the 2 questions for today. If it goes beyond those questions, great. If it turns into something totally different, great. Just have a great conversation. And after about 10 minutes or so, you will automatically be put back into this room for closing comments. So have fun in your networking groups, and please flex those muscles by participating today. Thanks. And joining us again. I don't want to brag, y'all, but I had an amazing networking room. I'm just saying. We had a lot of great conversation, and that was, of course, due to the great strategies and prompts that Stacy gave us to talk about. And I think, one recurring theme that we kept coming back to was that we're not alone. And we have to remember that this group itself is a tool that we can use moving forward to make sure that we're really making progress on this stuff. And it's important stuff. And I'm just so glad that you were with us today. So a couple of things as we close. You are going to see in just a moment a poll pop up. If you could just quickly give your very candid feedback on the poll, that would be great. It is anonymous. It is anonymous. So if you could just answer the question about how satisfied you were with today's webinar, that data helps us make some tweaks and fixes, to next time if needed. And while you're answering that, I'm going to give some additional reminders as well. So thank you for filling out that poll. When we surveyed this group initially, the feedback was pretty split, but most people said that ideally frequency for meeting with this group would be about once every 2 months. So that's what we're going to aim for. We don't have the exact date set for June yet, but it should be sometime in June. Also, you are going to get a recap email tomorrow with materials from Stacy. You're going to get a link to the recording. You're going to get her offer that she mentioned at the end of her presentation. And I hope you take advantage of that. I know I will. And then here's what's really important. So this group is all about strategies and moving forward, progress, right? So in your recap email, there's going to be a place for you to express interest in signing up to maybe lead a conversation for one of these groups or presenting on a topic that resonates with the group. I encourage you to volunteer. Maybe if this is one of those things that you really enjoy and it's a great fit and it's, that upper quadrant, you'd love to do it. We'd love to see that. But if you see this as a great opportunity to grow and build on your skill set, please volunteer as well. So just be mindful that will be in the recap email, a place for you to express interest in presenting at a future date to our group. What else? We are also opening up our women's event for Charlotte, which will be virtual. So of course, if you're not in Charlotte, that's perfectly okay. And so you'll get a link to register for that. If you're interested, you can explore our website and learn more about what's going to go on. It's a half day of keynotes and breakouts, all good stuff. But because you're a part of this group, we're going to offer you a discount code exclusively for this group. So shh, but take advantage of that if you would like. And So keep an eye on your email. Make sure that ncchamber.com is whitelisted by your domain, and you should get that sometime tomorrow. I thank you so much for joining us today. It is 2:59. We are going to give you a minute back of your time. Thank you for being with us, and we will see you in June. Bye, guys, or bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.